Hello and welcome to Thursday's episode of the 905er for the second week of January. My name is Roland Tanner.
I am Joel McLeod.
And as is often the case in our Thursday episode, we're going to give a kind of roundup of where we think we are in the 905 at the moment and the major news stories. And I suspect have a little bit of a rant, as we sometimes do, about some quite irritating things which are happening in our province.
There's plenty to go on about this week, that's for sure.
Yeah. Not a slow news week, that's for sure.
No.
Well, Joel, why don't you kick us off with what's grinding your gears?
Oh, I don't know if we have enough time for that. You and I have been talking about this for the better part of a week. Just the seem abject failure of leadership. Unfortunately, it seems at all levels of our government. Over COVID-19, the number of, when we came back from the new year, it was just member after member got caught sneaking out of the country on a vacation to somewhere warm and sunny. We found out that the Halton the Halton chief of police for Steve Tanner was caught outside of the country down in Florida. And it later found out that he got permission to leave from the chair of the police board, which turned out to be Oakville's own mayor, Rob Burton. I part of me, I'm just really frustrated that it's another member. I'm kind of like, if you're an elected official and you're listening to this podcast by some luck, just come out right now and just say if you've left the province, if you've left the country. I don't want to find out another week that somebody else in the region or in the province that came out and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I ducked out for a jaunt down to somewhere tropical and sunny and fun because I got tired, or it's my traditional yearly thing to do, or I've got property there." I quite frankly don't care. It's such a hypocritical slap in the face to the rest of us who are, quite frankly, we're suffering cabin fever. We're suffering anxiety and depression over this. And God forbid if you are one of the members of our province whose family member may have died from COVID. I can't imagine the rage that you must be feeling. It's completely shocking, and I'm punching walls and pillows to manage it. I'm going to hand off to you, Roland, because I'm just like processing still over here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a few times since we started doing this podcast, it's like giving Halton Regional Police a sort of lesson in media relations. If you get caught out of the country when you're not supposed to be out of the country and you decide to apologize, which the chief of police did, don't try and belittle it by saying, well, I was out looking after some business to do with property. That doesn't make it sound better. It makes it sound worse. Great, you've got a second house in Florida. That's not softening the blow for us when we feel like mole rats living underground. If we're lucky enough to have basements and not living in an apartment or something, when it's like I've used 3 tanks of gas this year since March,
right,
just driving between here and the supermarket. That's the sum of it, and I think it's incredible.
I find that it's maybe like if there's one thing off, an isolated incident, maybe it's just one lapse of judgment. What gets me though is that it's I'm starting to think that it's becoming more of a pattern. And I'm not saying necessarily with Chief Tanner behavior, but I'm going to the person who signed off to said it was okay. Oakville Mayor Rob Burton.
I'm
getting a little frustrated with his. I'm getting to think he does not take this pandemic seriously, and he thinks this is a joke. He's I'm going to say at least two times in recent memory, he signed off on a letter that wanted to say that Halton was special and didn't need to be subject to any lockdown areas because somehow magically we had figured it out when it was due to no public policy. There's no magic formula that we've implemented here in Halton. It was just dumb, blind luck. But Mayor Burton seemed to believe that somehow we were special and immune to COVID-19, which, I found it interesting that the last round before the lockdown in Boxing Day was announced, him and the other mayors of Halton were all ranting and raving about how we're so special. We shouldn't be included in a lockdown measure and da 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 da. And then as soon as it realized, oh, this letter and this time wasn't going to matter to the province anymore, all of a sudden now they're on board. Oh yeah, we need to lock down. Also, I think it became to light that they were blowing smoke up all of our butts because they'd said, oh no, they're talking with local public health officials when clearly they weren't, because the next day the president of Joe Brant Hospital said, we need to lock down so that Joe Brant is not overwhelmed in cases. And I was like, talk about a complete reversal. And because, you got caught with your pants down, you aren't talking with our medical officials. You're not getting the best information from them. You're not looking at the data. You're siding with what you're hoping is going to be somebody's going to bankroll your next re-election campaign.
It's been something that I don't quite understand, because businesses don't pay municipal tax. Municipalities have been falling over themselves to keep business happy, which in normal circumstances, yeah, absolutely, you should be good. But this is life and death. For months and months and months now, the medical doctors who are working on the front line in the ICUs, some of the public health people, if not the guys who are closest to the Premier, have been saying this needs to be dealt with a huge amount more seriously. The advice that was given on opening up schools of having a limit of 15 was ignored. At every step of the way, they did the minimum they could possibly get away with to allow business to continue, while saying, well, we'll do this to stop the spread. Nothing has stopped the spread since the summer. It did the first time round because we all agreed it was really important and we all stayed home. Now, a lot of people are not staying home now. I mean, I heard, now I'm quoting a statistic that I heard on, I think it was the CBC or something like that, that 50% of us stayed home on Christmas Day, so did not go to see relatives. Well, that's a terrible statistic. So that means 50% of us just went ahead as normal. And part of the reason that apparently the reaction to the MLAs in Alberta has been so strong is because Alberta actually has had a far higher kind of level of compliance to the stay-at-home orders. So to then find out that their MLAs were swanning about all over the world, seemingly, has really blown up spectacularly in the face of Jason Kenney and his government.
Well, I think it's hard for people to follow this government's direction at this point because it's so confusing. There's no...
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about communications. Yeah.
We had Mike Gibbs on an earlier podcast to discuss just why is it so confusing. And I've always asked this, like, why can we not find a way to live with this? And I do think, at this point, the province got to start chipping in into their own coffers and start, I think, paying businesses in some cases to stay closed, or just tell landlords you can't collect rent. Because here's the thing, we're seeing reports coming out of landlords just walking away with profits. They're the ones walking away with nice, sizable dividends to their shareholders. And I'm not talking like your mom and pop. I'm not talking like if you have a small place that you're using as a income supplement. I'm talking like the big landlord corporations, the ones who operate the the big strip mall plazas and the major companies. These guys are walking with big coffers of money this time around. And I think you have to wonder, like, why is that okay? We're seeing numbers skyrocketing. They're getting out of control. We're now facing, as we're recording this, the word is coming down. We're going to face a curfew. Is that going to work? I don't know. I don't know. We're a curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. I have no idea how that's going to stop COVID-19. I don't know. And somebody pointed out to me, we're just following whatever Quebec does. I'm beginning to think this government does not actually have a plan. It does not have anyone advising them. They're just waiting to see what Quebec does, and then we copy suit.
This government has no plan, no imagination, no spine. This is a crisis that just cries out for a bit of decisiveness. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, you're going to make enemies when you close down businesses. Of course you are. You're messing with people's livelihoods. Well, you've got 18 billion sitting in the damn coffers that were supposed to be spent on supporting people through this, that for some reason you're still not spending. And B, when it's life and death, well, tough nuts. It's like, are we gonna save lives or not bother?
I think we knew from the start this thing was going to cost us, not just in terms of body numbers, but in terms of money. Like you and I have had a couple entrepreneurs on this podcast before, and they've all said, thank God for the federal government for putting out the CERB and the CEWS and the rent subsidy and all that stuff. And it has gone into helping keep small businesses afloat, and in some cases, people with a roof over their head and food on the table. Good for them. But for some reason, the conservative governments or conservative-minded governments in this country are afraid to chip in. Like, I can't imagine at this point going to table a budget in March and saying, "Hey, we have a track record to become balanced. We're on track to balancing the budget by next year, or by 2022 or whatever." And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me! Like people are dying. We have hospitals being overwhelmed with COVID patients. We're canceling vital surgeries and vital treatments because COVID. And you're telling, are we going to sit there and say, oh, well, at least we balanced the budget. That's a win. Like, no, like, go into debt, spend the money, keep us alive. Don't tell us to sit there, follow the instructions. Nobody knows what the instructions are at this point. And clearly nobody in power is either. We have not just the Halton Regional Police Chief taken off out of the country. There's a CEO down Niagara Health who checked out, took a vacation because, why not? And those people, of all people, should know the importance of staying put for a pandemic. It's not time to go gallivanting around the world.
And that if you are in a position of leadership in a hospital or a police service or a government or a school or wherever, you're in a position of leadership, it's more important that you lead by example. I mean, did we not get taught that at school? Like, be an example to others. We know it sucks. You've got a house in Florida. You can probably get down there safely. Blah, blah, blah. It will be fine, and it probably will be fine. But it's like, how insensitive are you being right now that you, with all your, and I get tired of hearing this word, but I'm going to use it, with all your privilege, have decided that, well, the rules don't apply to me in quite the same way. We don't have the choice. I probably wouldn't have been going on vacation anyway because it's like, the bank account's not paying for it this year.
I think that's the other thing is how many people are sitting there saying, I've had to cut, make do. I'm not going on a vacation down to Disney World this year because, well, Disney World's closed, and two, I can't afford it. Business is hurting. I'm not making the money that I did last year. So yeah, the vacation to Whistler, let's keep it in, even just keep it in Canada. Let's go the vacation up to Collingwood or to Whistler for the holidays. We spend New Year's skiing. Yeah, that's canceled this year because we can't afford the trip. How many families are saying that? But yet you're still able to say, well, you know what? I always find a way to go down to Florida or check out my property in, Palm Springs or wherever. It's just,
I'm not having fun going down there for 2 weeks to, sign a lease or something. It's like, oh, come on, spare me. There's no business that can't be transacted over by the internet.
Yeah,
that I've found.
FedEx the documents up here, sign them, send them back, and
there's digital signatures. There's all sorts of things.
There's so many ways nowadays that you don't have to go down and don't spare me this. Oh, I have to look him in the eye and tell him, know what kind of man he is. Like bull fucking shit. Stop dicking around. Let's I apologize for my language, people.
It's a podcast. We can say what we like.
Yeah,
within reason.
I'm just fed up with all these stories. I'm fed up with hearing. I don't want to. I really don't want to hear from politicians anymore. I want to hear from professionals who know what they're talking, who studied this stuff for their career and they've made it their life passion. And then when they sit down, they tell us we need to do X, Y, and Z. That's what we should be putting into practice. Not. I'm sick of letters to the editor saying we're special. We should be exempted. Because clearly we're not.
And there's another one today from, and I can't remember which specific organization it was, but it was from one of the building and development organizations in Ontario saying, building is an essential service, so you've got to let our builders carry on building. And then there's actually in the Caledon Enterprise, which is one of the many local newspapers run by the Star that are basically all the same newspaper with a different heading on them. There's a op-ed from Dave Wilkes, who is let me just check this because I've got it right here, President and CEO of the Building Industry and Land Development Association, or BUILD, saying, it's been a tough year, everybody, but building industry had a great year. I'm paraphrasing there somewhat. And now we've got all these great new laws and the municipalities are going to have to do what we tell them to even more than they did before. We're going to get ahead and start building. So it's sickening amongst all this to see what is naked profiteering or naked self-interest and these excuses about, well, not many people are catching it on building sites. How the hell do you know? No one's telling us where people are catching it.
Well, that was one thing. I mean, where I brought up with Dr. Brar in our previous episode was like we aren't collecting the data. We're no longer doing contact tracing to find out where do these infection rates occur. And so, you hear Minister Lecce come and say, "Oh, schools are safe." Well, I'm also hearing from epidemiologists and doctors saying, "No, they aren't." 20% of our schools have at least some categorized outbreak of COVID in them. And it's one of these things of, I'm beginning to think we've lost the plot on this. We've lost control of COVID because they thought they were going to be smart and do these targeted reductions, except they didn't target where the infection was. They targeted where they hoped it was, or people thought, okay, that makes sense, but we're not going to close schools and we're not going to close down major workplaces where the transmission is probably pretty high up there. I think they tried to cherry pick, and they thought they thought that they could bend the virus to their will, and it's very clear not that case.
I remember saying way back in probably April or May, it's like if we really treat this thing seriously and said, with the exception of food, obviously food has to be the exception. With the exception of food, we closed down everything. And no one went outside the house for 2 weeks. It would be gone. It's like the disease cannot spread unless people spread it. It seems such a simple thing to grasp. It's spreading by people who are going to work, going to school, going to restaurants, because they're the people who are going out. Now, each one of those different things has been giving us an excuse for why they need to stay open.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not working. The doctors are now predicting, and I think it's a prediction that is pretty confident. This isn't kind of panic stuff. This is where we are now. In 2 weeks, we will be taking people off ventilators. So the people with the least chance of surviving will be taken off. So people with a better chance of surviving could be put onto them. So we're in Italy stage. We didn't need to be there. There's no reason why Ontario or Canada had to be here. We had this thing under control, and we let it out. We let it out because of weak-ass, lame messaging from the province, from the mayors, and the federal government probably hasn't been perfect, but God damn it, they did what they were able to do, which is say, stay the hell home, and we'll help you. Mm-hmm. The province has just said again and again and again, aided and abetted by the municipalities, well, maybe stay home, but, we don't want to upset you, and, we appreciate it. You've got to go to work, and, the kids need to go to school, and and, we'll go to a restaurant every now and again. Now, I'm sure that will be fine. Just do the bloody job. They have failed so horrifically badly.
It's funny. There are pathways forward in terms of how to live with this. I mean, we could keep schools open. We're told if you limit the social distancing in a school, so a classroom is down to 15. Ensure that classrooms have proper ventilation. Make masks mandatory in all the schools. Just stuff like this. What would have been the lifesaver? No, I don't know. We don't know. We'll never know because that wasn't implemented. We were basically told everyone go in, wear a mask. Good luck to you. See you in June. And that was the plan. It's come back and bit us in the butt. We are now, lockdown has been extended. Schools are closed. I don't know what's the plan. My gut tells me we're going to be like this for the foreseeable future. I think you're right. We're now Italy. We're now Italy. We're going to be stuck with, we might be told, nope, don't go outside at all.
Well, and we don't have the new super spreading version of this yet, but it's on the way. So when it arrives, we'll already be at capacity. And for those people who still insist this is just the flu, for God's sakes, go call a doctor, speak to someone who works in ICU, get some facts. I thought we should also, in a way, address what's happened in the US this week with the attempted coup d'etat at the Senate, with apparently, it seems increasingly clear, a fairly well-formed plan to seize the vice president and perhaps execute him by hanging him from a tree outside the Capitol. I mean, these are things that this is not. I'm not picking this up from BuzzFeed. This is actually coming from MSNBC. Now, I know some conspiracy theorists will think that's just as bad, but
it was very clear what happened in the United States. It should shock you and scare you to your core. The fact that it happened in the United States, in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. Capitol building, that a group of, it was like watching, if you want to imagine what Bastille Day would have looked like back in 1780, whatever, in France, that's what it must have looked like. Storming the government building with a bloodthirsty mob. I will say, thank goodness nobody, the government got through it and they were able to finish the business of the day. And small blessings. I don't want to say thank God nobody got hurt because, to my knowledge, 5 people and 1 U.S. Capitol police officer lost their lives during this attempted coup. It was shocking. What I think is more shocking is if it could happen in the United States, it can happen here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really important point to make, and it's been said a lot by people probably of our political persuasion, and I think it's worth saying why it can happen here, and that it's not just beware, otherwise the bogeyman will come to Canada. The bogeyman is in Canada. He's been here for quite some time. We have the rebel media. They had
the Proud Boys were founded by a Canadian. They were started here in Canada.
We've seen attempted riots and disturbances in Hamilton. Hamilton is sadly, it seems like Ontario's center for the worst kind of conspiracy theorists, yellow vesters, and the rest of them.
Neo-Nazi Paul Fromm tried to run for a seat on Hamilton City Council, I believe, in the last municipal election. I mean, he's an affirmed neo-Nazi, not just somebody of right-wing views. He identifies himself as a white nationalist neo-Nazi. That's a scary thought.
I think our political systems, I think ironically, the joke I've told at various points over the years was, it's not really a joke, so it's probably not funny, that's for sure, is that the US has the best constitution in theory, but it's kind of terrible in practice. And the constitution that we inherited from England and the United Kingdom is kind of a disaster area in theory, but it kind of broadly kind of sort of works in practice. And the big advantage of that system is that when something goes wrong, you can change the rules relatively easily without having to, the US Constitution, for better or worse, they're basically stuck with, because getting every state to agree to change it is just about impossible. But so I think our institutions are somewhat stronger, but those people are here. We've seen the faith goldies. And of course, there are always nutcases and extremists. But the man who would have been prime minister stood on a stage with her. They courted and made the right dog whistles towards the yellow vesters. We hear about barbaric cultural practices. We hear about the federal government failing to protect our borders, about these swarms of people jumping across the border. This is all this is the road that ended with Trump in the States. That they just got there ahead of us. These dog whistles and conspiracies. I mean, Aaron O'Toole, his phrase is "Take Canada back." He knows exactly what that's a phrase inspired by Trump. That "Take Canada back, make America great again." It's like you're not full. Well, he probably is fooling people because
it's like that is calculated sloganeering. It's not a random phrase. It's not just some words. It's never just words in politics. This stuff is tested. It is tried. It is targeted towards who you want to mobilize and who you want to appeal to. I this week, on January 6th, the day of this attempted coup in the States, on the Conservative website, the Conservatives had posted how Justin Trudeau was attempting to steal the next election. And I'm like, you're telling me like that's not lifted straight from Donald Trump's speaking points? That's not, you look, wow, he's gaining some traction with his supporters south of the border with that. Okay, let's try and frame it here. That's dangerous. It's dangerous that you want to, and I mean they end up having to take it down because they got caught. They realized, oh my God, my hope is that the Conservative Party and Aaron O'Toole realizes that this isn't nice. It's not a theoretical flirtation, or you can't just say, well, I just say it. People have to believe it. Like you have to accept the consequences of what you say, and you can't just do this. Well, it's free speech and it's all this. Like, no, we have free speech, but you also have to deal with the consequences of it. And if you're going to go for the cheap mobilization of let's just go for the basis denominator, let's just cash in our conspiracy theory chips and just do transactions in the most basis of theories, it's just going to lead us all into the wrong spot.
And it should be. I mean, was reminded again this week. Again, can't remember which thing it was I was listening to. Or I think it was Conan O'Brien or someone like that, talking about John McCain and and this reminds us that this was out there long before Trump rose to power. That a woman at one of McCain's rallies said, we can't have this man. He's a Muslim. He's blah, 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 blah.
In regards to Barack Obama.
In regards to Barack Obama, yeah. And McCain, and we shouldn't think this is extraordinary or unusual. It's just what a decent human being does. Said, no, you're wrong. Barack Obama is a good man. He's a family man, blah, blah, blah.
We just disagree on policy points.
Yeah. And Erin O'Toole and every member of every party should be able to say, you know what, I disagree with Justin Trudeau on a million things. I don't think he's a very good prime minister, but he's a decent person. He's not a traitor. He's not anything. He's just
we disagree on how to get Canada forward.
The closest he is to extremism is his extreme moderation.
Well, but I mean that's the thing is like, and it's funny. You go online and you'll find pictures of the deputy conservative leader wearing a "Make America Great Again" cap,
camo hat, by the way. Yeah.
Camo hat. You'll find pictures of Doug Ford with Faith Goldie and with a Proud Boy. Some local Proud Boy chapter president or whatever, and you can slough it off with, he just takes a photo with everybody. It's like, you got to be smart in this. You are the leader of the province, one of the largest provinces in the country. Your voice matters. You can't just slough it off as, I talk with all sorts of people. Yeah, these people. You don't want to be seen with these people. If you want to be seen with these people, I don't want to be seen with you. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's coming down to. It's if you're on the right, I believe that there are smart moderate people. There are people who want low taxes. They want pro business strategies, and that is fine. That is good. I applaud that, and you know what? I think that's definitely a conversation that we all should have. How to make our economy more productive and prosperous for all. How to encourage entrepreneurship in this province and in this country. Definitely. If you're a conservative, small c conservative person, and you have ideas, step up to the microphone. Let's hear them, and we can figure out a way forward. But where you have to step up now, and when you see your leaders and your elected officials and your candidates cozying up to these people, these right-wing, white nationalists, neo-Nazi, Proud Boy nut jobs, because it's an easy photo op or it's an easy way to curry support, denounce them.
It's an easy way to fund. Most importantly for them, usually, it's an easy way to fundraise. Because the money comes from the extremists, not from the moderates.
Well, it's easy to curry favor. It's easy to send an email saying, Justin Trudeau wants to steal your guns and give them to immigrants. And who's most going to give money? Well, probably racist gun nuts. And it's if you're a small c conservative and you good on you, but it might be time to stand with the rest of us on the progressive side and say, no, you cannot cross this line. Start rolling it back now, because we saw where it ends, and it's not a good place.
Yeah, and don't be Ted Cruz, and don't be Mitch McConnell, and don't be Lindsey Graham, don't
Josh
don't
Hawley.
be these weak-chinned, fat-headed quislings who went along with it every step of the way, who were abused by Trump and then got on the bandwagon with him. Don't be that person. Get out now and say, this is not conservatism. There's nothing wrong with being a conservative. Nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being, economic, saying business is the best way to run the economy. We should be more careful with how we spend taxpayers' money. We should tend towards low taxes. Nothing wrong with any of that. Those are all fantastic, justifiable political points of view. I just don't happen to agree with them myself quite often. But this is not conservatism that we have had. What happened with the Reform Party in Canada was the conservatism as our parents understood it. My parents were lifelong conservatives. Died with Reform in Canada. It died with Margaret Thatcher in Britain in many ways. It died, I think, probably with George W. Bush at the latest, if not before, in the States.
I would argue it died with Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, certainly was on the road with Reagan. Mm-hmm. I think, that's when those parties became dogmatic about, kind of religious. So the idea of a free economy was like a religious attachment, rather than we think this is. We think there's evidence that suggests that freeing up the market is the best way to go. It became this unarguable tenet. And they've just descended from there into something which is not conservatism at all.
It's just power for the sake of power. There's no ideology behind it. There's no policy behind it. It is pure, naked lust for power. They don't care about taxation. They don't care about foreign policy. They don't care about economic development. They care about winning. They care about power, and they don't care who they have to step on. They don't care who they have to destroy, have to backstab to get it. They don't care what mob they have to stir up and get into a foaming frenzy and unleash them in their house of government. It is disgusting in every shape, way, and form. It's here in Canada. We had there was this guy in over the summer try to storm the barricades at Rideau Cottage to go and arrest Justin Trudeau for his perceived transgression. And at the time, we kind of go, "Oh, that's just ridiculous." And we thought, no, like, what's the difference between that guy and the thousands of mega idiots who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th? Nothing. There's absolutely nothing different between him and them. The only difference was numbers. And if you think that this is an aberration here in Canada, it is not. It is here. We need to take it seriously. I'm glad to see that Minister Bill Blair is talking about putting the Proud Boys on our list of terrorist organizations in this country. I hope that he follows through with it and does so. I think we need to start taking this very seriously. We need to start looking into an actual program by the RCMP and our law enforcement officials to infiltrate these organizations and dismantle them. The Proud Boys are in the military. We know that much from what we've read about in Halifax. They were still allowed to stay in the military. There are serious issues in this country that we, either it's our Canadian politeness, we like to turn a blind eye to and don't want to discuss it. But I think let's look to our neighbor to the south, our friend, and see what they just went through. And let's just accept the fact it can happen here. And if we don't do something about it, it will happen here.
What we've just seen in the States, we would have thought 10 years ago was impossible. We saw all sorts of horrible things happening, but I don't think most people thought it would get this far. Something would happen before it got here. I mean, I thought, like, well, after 2 years, the party will see which way the wind blowing, or someone with a spine and a conscience will wake up. Mitt Romney, he's the only one out of the entire party stood up to him. I think, I can't remember his name. Is it Bolton? He was a Secretary of Defense. He was on CBC the other day, and
he turned on Trump just to sell his book, though.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. No, the guy's, I mean, he's kind of smart, but he was incredibly rude on CBC to the interviewer. And then, basically to the question of why did you serve in Trump's government, he said, well, what else was I supposed to do? Well, how about not serve in Trump's government? How about not serve in the government of a fascist? I mean, at least I was only acting under orders argument that the Nazis used had some kind of internal logic to it. My God, it's like, what's I supposed to do?
We're just, it's not an easy road forward. I'm hoping that we in Canada will look at what happened south of the border as a bit of a gut check time. I'm hoping that if you're a conservative-minded person and you are listening to this podcast, you
I think we'll have checked out 35 minutes ago.
I'd hope not. I hope something we said kind of struck a chord with you, and that you're looking and saying, you know what, there are lines that just should not be crossed. And here's the thing. We may not agree on taxation, we may not agree on government spending, but I think we can all agree we going after people and calling them traitors and wanting to incite mob violence to string people up for a noose hanging and worse is not the way to go. We are a democracy. We vote our problems out or in, as the case may be. But we need to do better. That's all I'll say. That'll be my last word on the subject.
Well, I think that's a good way, a good place to end it. You're absolutely right. And when, the question we all have to ask ourselves, and every child should get taught this at school, it's like, when the day comes that bad things are happening, are you going to be one of the ones who just sleeps through it and maybe it won't be as bad as it? Are you going to be one of those people who tolerates it until it's far too late, which is what the Republicans have done because of greed and selfishness and, just the worst instincts? Or are you going to get out there ahead of it and say, no, we see which way the wind's blowing. This guy, Trump, is a monster. He should never be allowed to be president. These people who are already, the Berniers and the Goldies and the rest of them, Bernier was a mainstream moderate politician who, thankfully, is getting nowhere with his little fascist organization. But the right person could turn that around very easily. And we just need to be ready for it when it happens and not tolerate it, not make the same mistakes as the US has made. Anyway, that certainly is a good therapy session for us both, Joel. Getting off our chest. But, I think at no time since the Second World War that I can think of has this kind of threat to what we assumed were the accepted norms of democratic society been so threatened. So I think it's worth venting about it. And I think it's worth venting about the truly incompetent and disgraceful response to this disease, when all that was needed was to do what the doctors said. So I apologize to listeners if you think we're going off on one a little bit, but we need to be feeling strongly about this, because if you don't feel strongly, it will keep on happening. With that, we'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll be back next week with more from the 905er.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns, or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.